Welcome to the stage, Ben Averill. Looking forward to it.
Evening, everyone. We're going to touch those big wires that Steve talked about in the last presentation. One of the things that's really driving electricity growth in the US these days is data centers and different needs for renewable energy. The electrical grid is expected to grow 3 to 5% for the next 20 years or so. So one of the things that limits the electrical grid is the age of our infrastructure. The age of our infrastructure, a lot of our transmission lines are very old, and we need to update them. There's various ways to update the transmission lines on our grid. One is to build new transmission lines. We can put up new wires on the old lines for reconductor, or we can do no wire alternatives. There's been a lot of talk, a lot of press about reconductoring transmission lines, and just wanted to talk about, is this a good solution? What options or what kind of drives the option to reconductor an existing line? So when you reconductor an existing line, you're putting up new wire on existing structures. You're typically not getting additional permits, and you're not getting any additional real estate for your transmission line, typically. This graph shows kind of the cost differences for different voltage levels between new transmission lines and reconductoring transmission lines. The takeaway is it's a lot cheaper to reconductor existing transmission lines compared to building new transmission lines. This is from the report from the Colorado Electric Transmission Authority that was recently released. And yeah, it's much cheaper to reconductor the existing transmission lines. When do we decide to reconductor a transmission line instead of building a new transmission line? Typically, it's the system impact study when a generation or load customer goes to a utility to ask for upgrades. Reconducting transmission lines is really simple. You're putting up the new wires on existing transmission structures and connecting the energy to it. So what makes a good transmission line to reconductor? Typically, these are shorter transmission lines, typically less than 50 miles in length, where you're limited by a thermal capacity. Longer transmission lines typically aren't ones that we are looking at. When we're built or thinking about reconducting a transmission line, we don't want to put any extra load on the structure because we don't want to have to replace, we want to spend as little money as possible to rebuild those existing structures. And we don't want to kind of take up more space than the existing structures have. So we don't want to blow out or have additional sag of the conductor on these transmission lines. This graph just typically shows the age of the wires that are used in a typical transmission system. 1908, this is the existing technology, and more recently, we're putting up new conductors on these transmission lines. What these conductors are typically called are high temperature, low sag conductors, and typically it's aluminum exterior with a carbon fiber or a special alloy in the middle, which reduces the sag. One of the things that comes with these new conductors is specialized hardware. The work processes that construction crews have used for 100 years, now they have to change how they're building the transmission lines. Wildfire is very important with transmission lines. With the new conductors, consideration is the operating temperature, because if you have a wire break, you might be operating at a temperature that could light some vegetation on fire. So again, you just have to be cognizant of the work methods used to install these new conductors, because it is very different than the way the construction crews have typically constructed transmission lines. One of the ways to construct or reconductor a transmission line is to shut off the entire line and replace all the wires. Typically, this takes the least amount of real estate, but you're turning off your transmission lines. Another way is to build a small temporary transmission line next to your existing transmission line, and you're just taking one wire at a time and just transferring the wires over sequentially as you're putting up the new wires. So in summary, reconductoring transmission lines is a great option. It's an awesome option in our tool belt to have. It's cheap, but you really have to know when to apply it and when to use it for new projects. So yeah.
I asked Ben just to stay up here. How do you know all this stuff? I mean, who do you work for?
Kimley-Horn.
All right, and how did you learn all this?
Work. They don't teach us in school.
No, none of this. So when we do our analysis, we work on the demand side, then we work on distribution, we've got supply side, and then when we get to transmission, we all give up. So how long does it take to site and build a new transmission line anywhere? Just pick an average place.
10 years at least.
10 years at least. So that's why reconductoring matters. So thanks for that. Thanks, Ben. Oh, I did have a question. I saw 950 degrees centigrade. That was on your slide? It was just exaggerating for effect? We don't know what centigrade is. That could be like, I don't know, as hot as the sun or Houston or I don't know which. But you had a whole thing there. You had a picture.
I'll have to talk to the manufacturer.
All right. If you can't defend it, don't show it. That's all I'm saying. We're going to notice. Look at us. We're a bunch of nerds. God, we're fun, aren't we? We're just talking to ourselves and about transmission lines and duct curves, and it's just so interesting. And we're like, yeah, and you go next door and there's a solar thing going on, and it's like, nobody's there. They're all here. They came here.